I've told Whit this multiple times. Lee Smith calls me, and only the way that Lee Smith could say it, he said, Fitz, this kid's going to be great. He reminds me exactly of you, but he's talented. And I was like, oh, man. Man, that's a good
it's my favorite line.
I can't wait to see
Backhanded compliment there, buddy.
Fantastic news, everybody. You're in precisely the right place at exactly the right time. This is the Fitz and Whit podcast. I'm Fitz, and that's Whit. And today is a momentous occasion for the show. You want to tell them why, Andrew?
Well, first off, I'm assuming with a name like Fitzpatrick, you're celebrating your first St. Patrick's Day show any way possible?
It is a first, okay. And I'm not talking about the Herculean task I'm going to have today of going to find a Guinness in Hawaii.
I was about to ask you that. Do they have Guinness in Hawaii?
I don't know, and I have to go try to find it. Because as you know, we film on Mondays. It airs on Tuesday. No, I finally got a guest. I am bringing my first guest to the table. You led off with McVay. That was huge. You had Kevin O'Connell. You had Gruden, which, by the way, now I'm text buddies with all these guys, too. So I think they were our guests, not just your guest.
I agree. It's we, not me, Fitz.
My first guest in the high-stakes, high-price game of the NFL and building teams is going to be Brandon Beane, the GM of the Buffalo Bills, dude. I can't wait to talk to him. I know you were on the golf course with Josh and Joey, the Joey Bosa conversation, so I can't wait to have you bring that up. But I've heard great things about him. I know him a little bit. The two times I've talked to him, one was they tried to sign me in free agency as a backup to Josh, and I literally said to him, everywhere I go, the starter gets hurt if I sign as a backup, so there's no way in hell I'm going to Buffalo to back up Josh Allen. And then the second time was when we were talking about when I retired, do you want to retire as a Bill? And we had a conversation about that. And it certainly is where I identify most, but I just felt like at the end of the day, that wasn't my career. My career was being a nomad and being a journeyman and being on a bunch of different teams and having a bunch of different fan bases cheer and jeer me. So that's why I decided not to do that. But I don't know him really well. I know him better than you because he's my guest and he's my friend.
Maybe you do.
But I can't wait to talk to him because I've heard he's an unbelievable dude. And just, the funny story of how do you become a GM that we always get asked will be a good one too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll be great. I mean, obviously, you've heard how tight him and Josh are. I think it's going to be neat to kind of hear that relationship. I got some questions too, though. I mean, like how you handle some of these situations when you get in these draft rooms. I'm sure him and Sean McDermott get along, but, hey, listen, you don't always agree on things, right? You got 7 kids. I got 4. I got 3 dogs. Listen, I disagree sometimes on the process and how we should do things in the house. There's no doubt about it. So I want to hear, how do they do that when you get stuck on certain guys and you got to come to conflict resolution? It'd be neat to hear that. And then also just their vision for where they're going from here. Is it, how do we beat the Chiefs? Is it, how do we win the AFC? What's the vision for how you get to that title? Or is it just as simple as win our division and let's get a chance in the playoffs?
Yeah, and I just feel like they're at the point now the Bills are where every year a Super Bowl or bust now. Right. I mean, you're winning the Super Bowl.
17, it is.
Or it is. And that's what it's become. And I go back to our game, Thursday Night Football, when they played Miami, and I was on the fence, Miami, Buffalo, everybody else picked Miami. But if you think back to everybody they lost last year and heading into the season, I think it was the one reminder that we needed, that as long as Josh Allen is your quarterback, you have a chance. Now, I want to ask you, with the Super Bowl expectations and everything, because I was never on a team, shocking, Whit, that at the beginning of the year, the goal was Super Bowl or bust. And, it was always, gosh, can we win the division? Can we make the playoffs? Can we get in as a wild card? Do we have enough talent? Is this possible? But for you, there was the expectations at times. So those 2 Super Bowl teams that you played on, did you know boy, we've got a special opportunity here? And was that the expectation going into the season?
Yeah, I think after 17, really how good we were, and we felt like our worst game of the whole season was against the Atlanta Falcons in the playoffs, and we were really special on offense that season. Sean McVay's first year, Jared Goff, all of a sudden, year 2, he takes off, and then in 18, it was like, this offense and how good we were. Can this team take them to a playoffs? And Wade Phillips and this defense, what can they do? We'd gotten Clay Matthews and some other guys to kind of join. It was like, man, this team's got a chance. And sure enough, we went on a run. The Saints were really the team to beat at that time, but we thought we were the kind of team that was built to hang with them offensively. So, yeah, there was an expectation. And then also the season went so well, much like I think Buffalo's was this past year, which will be interesting to see how they bounce back from it, is we thought once we got rolling, we're unbeatable. Like we're winning the Super Bowl. And as I've shared about that story, we got in that game, and I don't think we ever even thought the Patriots had a chance to beat us. So to go there and not perform up to the standard and to lose the game was just such a punch in the gut, not just because you lost the Super Bowl, but because we really thought the way the year went, this is our year, and we're going to hold that trophy at the end. And so that was definitely that. In 21, no, I think we thought we were a really good team. We thought with Matthew Stafford, it was going to be different, but the San Francisco 49ers were going to be tough to beat. There were some other teams in the NFC that, you knew you might have a chance to get there. We didn't know if we'd be the best team in the NFL, though. So I think that year we learned more about ourselves as the season went.
Yeah. Okay, before we get to Mr. Brandon Beane, you just talked about the 49ers and how great they were. Man, they were gutted this offseason. It's like every free agency signing, you just see a San Francisco guy going somewhere else. But I want to talk about, I don't want to go over every name, sign different teams, but kind of the big stories are the ones that mean the most to us, the ones that made our heads turn a little bit. And I'll start. I would love to talk about Chris Godwin. And when I was in Tampa, he came in as a rookie. And I said this right when he got there, and it was during training camp. This wasn't, as the season went on and gosh, he's going to be pretty good. He's having a good year. It was in training camp. I had never seen a more impressive rookie with his approach to the game, with his maturity. And I think that's a problem now. And I can't wait to hear from Brandon Beane about some of these guys coming in and maybe some of the immaturity issues and things. But Chris Godwin was the most polished, most NFL ready rookie, not just receiver, but rookie that I was ever around in 17 years. And so to see it come to fruition, to see him have such a great career, and now to have the major injury last year, to go back to Tampa at a little bit of a discount from what we're hearing from other teams, New England and some others, that 1-2 punch of Mike and Chris is amazing. He's such a great dude. And it's really cool to see guys that are going to be able to hopefully, play their careers in one spot. And Chris is trying to make that happen by signing a new 3-year deal with the Bucs. And Baker, and gosh, just like Gruden told us last week, that becomes really interesting, that football team, because they were close last year.
They were, and you can tell that decision has to be related to Baker and that team and his belief in really what's there. So I think that tells you a little bit, much like we'll get into asking Brandon Beane some questions about culture and guys wanting to be there. That obviously tells you Chris Godwin thinks we have something special here and we've got unfinished business, which is what you want, right? You want guys who are signing up with that mentality of, we have a little bit more that we have potential for, and I want to be a part of it. I don't want to leave it. So I think you see that in free agency. Obviously, there's been some interesting moves. I mean, obviously with the Rams, with Cooper Kupp moving on, now signing in Seattle, they're going to have to play him twice a year, and Cooper Kupp's going to be ready for that. Oh, yeah. Man, we're going to get some fired up Kupp moments, and I've been a part of some really special ones. And then I think Devontae Adams coming to the Rams. It's going to be interesting to see, a Stafford, a quarterback like Rodgers, who he can get him some one-on-one opportunities. And you got a guy that's really special at throwing the football, and Devontae Adams is really good at separating. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to use Puka and Devontae and how that relationship works, really of who's the first read. Obviously, we think the offense is going to be run through Puka, but that relationship and that offense is different. It's going to be something we've never really seen out of a Sean McVay offense.
Dude, I can't wait. And I loved hearing the story from Devontae of how Sean would just send him clips and break down his routes and talk to him about why he's going to be so special in the offense. The thing that's interesting to me is all Rams receivers block. And Cooper Kupp was such a great blocker. And it's not one for one. They're not the same player. They do different things and have different strengths and weaknesses. But I don't see Devontae going down there and blocking Forrest very much.
I don't think he's going to do that a lot. I think there's some other teams that have done some things. I mean, I really look at the Chicago Bears. I mean, to me, Fitz, you look at that. What does Ben Johnson come and do? Who knows how these coaches' careers are going to go when they sign up and you're like, got a belief in somebody as a play caller and how special he was. But boy, does it make me feel good when the first thing he does is say, look, it's not about just fixing Caleb Williams on the field or how do I develop him and make him reach that potential he has. It's about fixing what's around him first. And let me make sure that he's going to have an interior 3 guys in front of him. They're going to be able to play at a standard that's going to be able to give him an opportunity to produce. And so to go make those moves and bring those guys in, we talk about free agency, but really it's team building right now, whether it's through free agents, through trades, through the draft. What's your vision for that? I think that's really one that's O-line eccentric that's going to matter. I think it's going to actually affect them offensively, be able to run the football more effectively. 2 guys that have been a part of teams that have run the ball well. So I think that's a big one. I also think what's interesting, the draft's almost set at number 1 pick for me. I would say that I think you could dang near say 90% the Tennessee Titans are selecting Cam Ward, because if you look at their moves, you go get Dan Moore. You pay a lot of money to get a left tackle. You go get Kevin Zeitler, who just seems like he's going to play good at right guard till he's 95 years old. You plug him in. You move J.C. Latham, the young, talented pick, who was really a right tackle. He played left as a rookie. He moves back to his home at right tackle. Now they have a group with Cushenberry and Peter Stronsky. Like, they got a group now. They got a front 5 that you can go, all right, listen, we can run the football. We can be productive. What do you go do immediately after you do that? You're going to go get a rookie quarterback, young guy who's really talented that you can protect him. And so it'll be interesting to see. This is Tennessee's shot to kind of get things fixed in the Callahan-centric, right? Bill Callahan's the O-line coach, right? Like Brian Callahan, the head coach. Like, this is their philosophy, built from the line. So it's going to be fun to see, because last year, you remember, they were good on defense. So if they can produce, and this is a big change, I think that AFC South is wide open right now, because you got a lot of change in that division.
Yeah, and every time you talk about these linemen, you just get so excited and so happy.
Oh, come on, baby, it matters. And then the other side, the Texans, right? They already struggled up front. They traded away their best player and cut their next best player. So
what are we doing?
Like I said, this division's open, Fitz. It's going to be great. I can't wait, though, to talk to Brandon and get to this interview. Fitz, I got to tell you this quick story, though. I was looking up, like, this year, what they've done, free agency, kind of like, hey, what their moves are. And, obviously on the ticker, when you look up like transactions, okay, I didn't know this, but on transactions, it's like, re-signed Greg Rousseau, gave a contract extension to Shakir, Von Miller's, released or whatever. So it's like all the transactional things, and it's just your name and what they did. Under Josh Allen's restructure, it's like extension, restructure contract for MVP Josh Allen. Like, I didn't know that they would put MVP on the transactions. I didn't know that was a thing. You put a label. I thought that was
Who's
awesome.
in charge of that?
Yes. Yeah. So here's my story, though. I went to Vegas this weekend for Tony LaPena, our good buddy,
Tony LaPena. Wait, that's a shocker. So you were out hobnobbing with celebrities in another town. Okay.
So his wife, Michelle's her 50th birthday. So go to Vegas for that. It was also Melissa and I's anniversary Friday night. So we go to anniversary dinner.
Happy anniversary.
Hey, thank you. 50th birthday party on Saturday night. Well, we played golf at the Wynn. And somebody asked me, hey, can you tell me the story about the locker? And I'm like, wait, what? I was like, oh my God, I forgot, because one of the guys is a Rams fan. And I was like, yeah, let me tell you real quick. Well, I'm not going to say the game we won, Fitz, but we won the big game, so I don't say the word. We got flown out by the Wynn to me, Matthew, and Cooper to spend the weekend and celebrate like these teams do now after Super Bowl. We land, it's us and our 3 wives. I'm sure it's not the crowd they really thought they were getting to come celebrate. It's at the Chainsmokers. We're coming in hot with breast pumps and,
right.
Anyways, but literally, so we land, we go there. Next day we play golf. Well, they're like, hey, would you guys sign this locker in the golf locker room at the Wynn? This would be really special for us. The guy who handles the locker room is a big Rams fan. Oh, man, I'd love to. Stafford signs, like Super Bowl champ, number 9. Coop goes, like Super Bowl MVP, Cooper Kupp, his number, Super Bowl MVP. I mean, I'm the offensive lineman. I'm a little fired up. I'm feeling myself. I'm like, I'm not going to just sign Andrew Whitworth 77. I got to write something cool.
What'd you do?
Fitz, I write Andrew Whitworth, number 77, Walter Payton Man of the Year. Boom, like WPMOY, right?
Yeah.
So we get out to playing golf. The guy sends me a picture. Hey, thanks for signing this locker. He sends it to the 3 of us. This is sick. We're going to keep this forever. Coop looks at me and goes, Whit, did you sign Wimpy? And I went, wait, what? I wrote WMPOY.
Oh no, you switched the M and the P?
And the entry to the M is looks like an I, and it says Andrew Whitworth, number 77, Wimpy. That was my signature on the locker. That's there forever. They'll keep
immortalized.
Cooper and Matthew are on there. They'll keep it forever. So that was my story. When I saw the MVP Josh Allen transaction, I started laughing because that's what I thought about, me signing Wimpy on a locker after winning the Super Bowl. But
gosh, what would I don't know what I would sign there. I would sign
I couldn't not be cool like everybody else.
No, I know, and it's got to be short too. So I couldn't put like only quarterback to throw 6 touchdowns and no picks and no touchdowns and 6 picks. That's too long.
Yeah.
I
think you just write Magic. You'd write Magic.
Yeah. Well, but what if, I mean, sure, Magic Johnson played there, so it's like I can't. Yeah, I don't know. I'll
just
think
don't
about
write
it.
Wimpy, okay?
Wimpy, that is
fucking
so.
Wimpy.
And there's no going back. You could.
No, it's there forever. I mean, it's a marker.
So now you do WPMOY, right?
It's my own thing. I'm just gonna make it my own acronym.
That is so funny. And that brings us to the business of the day, a man who has made one hell of a name for himself with the business he's conducting for my Buffalo Bills. If he doesn't already have a lucky number, today's special guest should seriously consider 17. He joined the Bills in 2017, promptly broke their 17-year playoff drought. He followed that up by selecting a kid out of Wyoming with a bazooka for an arm and an NFL MVP in his future. That kid was Josh Allen, of course. And the number of his jersey, what else? 17. In this man's 8 seasons as Buffalo's GM, the Bills have made the playoffs 7 times under his team-building leadership. They have flipped the script in the AFC East, winning 5 straight division titles, and in doing so, turning what was a Patriots playground, trust me, I lived it, into a Western New York wonderland. Please give a Fitz and Whit welcome to 2-time NFL Executive of the Year, Bills General Manager, Brandon Beane. Hey, how we doing?
Man, that's a pretty good intro, the 17s. I like that.
Okay, the first question we got to get out of the way here, because Whit and I get asked this all the time, and it drives us crazy. Yes. Hey, my son is interested in sports. He wants to be a GM for an NFL team?
He's really good at the fantasy draft.
Yeah. So just tell us, lay it out for us. How do you become a GM in the NFL? It seems pretty easy.
Oh my gosh, where do you start? It's there's no direct path. You gotta get a lot of breaks, like I did along the way. I tell people. I started as an intern in 1998. For 6 weeks, I was a PR intern, and then I went to about a 5-month football operations intern for the season, and then I started in football operations February of 1999. Just most guys, Fitz, I would say, go the scouting route right away. I did it in reverse order. I think it helped me a lot just from understanding the business side, how things work. I learned the CBA and the cap before I really dug knee deep into the scouting part of it. We were a smaller staff, so I got fortunate enough to help our pro department make free agent cut up tapes, undrafted free agent stuff for the college staff, just low lying fruit that got me involved. I could ask scouts questions, but my number one job was running the football operations and, working budgets, then learning the CBA. And I had a boss in Marty Herney that he could feel the passion I had. And I was always like, Marty, I'll take anything off your plate you don't want. I know you got a lot. And little by little, he would just hand me this, hand me that. Next thing you know, I'm calling agents for setting up things. And like I said, later in my career, probably 10 years in is when I really started digging into the scouting, which was, like I said, it was more of an atypical route, but there's not an easy path. You do have to learn how to evaluate talent. You do need to learn how the business part of it. But at the end of the day, you need to learn how to treat people, communicate, run an organization, form alignment, and understand what kind of team you want. Marry that with a head coach. Make sure you have a shared vision. There's so many things that go into it. But along the way, it took me 19 years to land this job. I got a lot of breaks.
Oh, so it's not easy. So for me though, the easy way it seems like to become an NFL GM is to go to St. Francis in Hamburg and then John Carroll, and then you just find your way in, because it was
a lot of John Carroll.
Dude, it was so Bill Polian's son, Chris, Tom Telesco,
Dave Caldwell
with Jacksonville.
That's right.
Yeah, it was like this unbelievable path of guys. And then, the list from John Carroll is pretty funny too. But I want to get into just when you first started, was your thought the end goal is GM, or was it, I just want to be involved in sports and this is a way in?
Yeah, I mean, you always have this far-fetched, like, I want to be a GM, but I never really focused from day one on that. I was just like, man, I want to stay in this thing. I want to make myself so valuable. Like, I want to be really good at running a football operation, helping the equipment staff, the training staff, the video staff. Like, I want to help those guys. I want to make sure when we fly in free agents that they're handled first class, that we're doing everything the right way. That was my true focus, way beyond the cap, CBA, scouting. It really was. But once I was about 8 or 9 years in, I was director of a lot of stuff, football ops, including some other things. At that point, I was having conversations with Marty about, hey, Marty, what can you do? Like, I've started dealing with agents. I know a lot about the CBA. What can I do to help you from a scouting standpoint? I'm not asking you to fire a scout. I'm not asking you to remove anybody. Just, are there some things behind the scenes I can do? And so he would give me little projects here and there, like, hey, we may try and draft a running back early. I remember the year we drafted Jonathan Stewart, 2008, out of Oregon. He gave me him plus some other backs, and just talk to him directly. Like, don't share it with the scouts. Just kind of I'm not sitting in the room hearing these. There's no, I'm not jaded by anyone's opinion. This is just how I see them. And it really gave me an opportunity at that point to kind of then see how the rest of the staff graded them, read reports, and really just kind of take it from there.
Brandon, I would have to ask you that. I think it's really cool when you talk about really where you started and then work your way up. You got to be in a lot of rooms. And Fitz playing for forever, and myself as well playing for a long time, we know what that equipment room's like and how it is the true – just I always say, oh, man, it is like, if you want to know what a franchise is like, not the players, not the success on the field, but like what the real environment, the culture is of a place, you can go in that room. Those guys know more than anybody in the whole entire building about what's going on. For you, being involved in that equipment room when you got those football ops opportunities and really coming up through the building that way, is there things you look at in players differently maybe than other people might, because you kind of know, man, people who have a pulse of the building are the kind of guys you're looking for and how they treat everybody in the building?
You just nailed it there, Whit. It's how do you treat every person, from the person that greets you at our front door, Miss Lisa. How do you treat her? How do you treat our kitchen staff? But yes, being equipment staff, like, what players take care of you guys? What players are appreciative? What players are a pain in the ass? And the number one person in our building that I ask who's a pain in the ass is not a coach. It's not a scout. It's Jeff Mazurk, our head equipment guy. And Jeff's been around for a long time. And usually I'll just saddle up to him at practice one day and I'll say, who's the biggest pain in your ass right now? Let's hear it. And sometimes it's a rookie who's been a big wig at some school we're having to, show him the ropes, but at least kind of gives me an understanding of who I need to kind of saddle up to and just give him a little nudge, like, hey, dude, I'm hearing a few things. Let's make sure, you kind of check that, because culture and all that it's so many levels, but how you treat people from the top to the bottom. I mean, look at what Josh Allen giving Slick Rick, our mailman, some love at the thing. Like,
that's epic.
Slick Rick's a Buffalo hero now. I mean, but it's cool for someone like that, just off of what Josh said, but that embodies what we want to be, whether it's Josh Allen or whether you're the 90th player on a roster, treating every single person the right way.
Well, I think it also probably gives you a great platform in that building for people who, like you said, Fitz, like when you first started, you might not even been thinking about being a GM, but you can really be able to speak to so many different people in that building from a capacity of like, man, don't sell yourself short. Like, if you have the character, the capacity to keep excelling and building in a building and saying, hey, I'm going to keep growing and going as we go, and I'm going to find that thing I want to do most, you're a fantastic example of, don't sell yourself short. I mean, you could be in those seats. It just takes that commitment over a long time of finding a new, better version of yourself every single day when you come to work.
Yeah, Brandon, I don't want you to ask Jeff Mazurek any questions about me when I was there. There was a lot of jock straps and just different things, It was a different NFL back then, but
different league.
He's still one of my best buddies. We had a ton of fun, but you hit on Josh Allen. I was able to meet Josh right before you guys drafted him, and just having the opportunity to spend a night with him and talk to him, my hope was that he was going to end up in Buffalo, because you could tell he embodied the city of Buffalo and he represents them so well. And the thing I love about him, not just the kind of person he is, but he understands that and has taken that responsibility and lives that every single day. How cool was that to see him win the NFL MVP this year? And I saw some of your quotes, but the funny stuff of being overrated, and just talk about the man that Josh is before the player and how much he means to this organization.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally, Fitz, if you go back to my opening press conference, there was a lot of push for, the other Josh or, some other players. Josh was a very polarizing figure in that draft.
Well, so is Josh Rosen.
Yeah, I know. But when I went down to my press conference, you go back and watch it in your free time. They were all over me about why did I take Josh Allen? Yeah. Why wouldn't I choose Josh Rosen? Yada, yada, yada. And I kept telling them, guys, separate. I'm going to get into the player. He's physically gifted. He can do everything in our weather. He's got size. People are forgetting what an athlete this guy is beyond where you think his accuracy is or the deficiencies that you see in his game. Is this guy, I promise you, when you meet him, you're going to realize what I'm talking about. This guy is Buffalo. No one I met is more Buffalo than Josh Allen. And just go watch him play in Wyoming, the same type of conditions. But even as a person, blue collar, grew up on a farm. I learned it real quick. He told me in an interview, I was like, what else did you do? He's like, my dad told me if I wasn't playing a sport, I was helping on a farm. He goes, so I played every sport I could, because he knew the rest of the time, he was going to be doing blue collar stuff. But Josh is very appreciative of where he came from. He still recognizes people, whether it was high school teammates that he's introduced me to, high school coaches, junior college coaches, every step of the way. I mean, this guy had to email his way to a Division I offer at Wyoming. No one, was giving this guy a chance. And that is Buffalo. No one gives Buffalo a chance. This is a blue collar town. Everything's earned, city of good neighbors. And that's who Josh is. He's way beyond the talent. He fits this city. He fits this culture. He cares about people. He treats people nicely. He's very involved. It's one thing to, when you have his checkbook, you can write checks. That's not, Josh does that. But Josh is going to places. He's spending time in the children's hospital, not just there, other places. And that's what, shows his true character. He's passionate about it. He's not, like I said, I think it's easy for people to write a check. I think it shows their true character when they take the time to go visit these places that need to see a guy like Josh Allen to lift them up.
I love meeting him, but it was the moment. I've told Whit this multiple times. Lee Smith calls me, and only the way that Lee Smith could say it, he said, Fitz, this kid's going to be great. He reminds me exactly of you, but he's talented. And I was like, oh, man, that's a good
it's my favorite line.
I can't wait to see
compliment
that,
there, buddy.
Yeah, I want to talk about, though, your relationship with Josh. I know you guys are super close. He just got the extension. Does that get difficult? You as I just even look at it as like a father-son relationship, and there are certain things, I want to be best friends with my boys, but there's a line where, like, I am your father and you are my son. Is there the relationship, you and Josh, you being that close, is there a line that you have to draw, or with your players, those dynamic, great players that you have, do you always try to keep a separation of I'm a GM and you're a player?
I honestly, I make it very difficult on myself with all players, because I really try to get to know them, their families, and I don't try to do I'm the GM and because there are people that do that, and I understand why. Because when you have to deliver bad news, whether it's we're not going to extend you or we got to move on from you, it becomes easier. And I know people that do that and swear by it. It's just not my nature. My nature is to get to know you. I do care about your wife, your spouse, your kids. I want to know what I talk to these guys. Most of the time that I talk to the players is after practices or on road trips. I'm not calling them up to my office. It's more just when it's very casual. But with Josh, I would say we do, we hit it off well on the golf course. I laugh at his stupid ass jokes. Like I'm a 12-year-old too.
Has he ever stolen your watch? Has he taken your watch before off your wrist?
He broke my strap on one of my watches. He thought he was being slick, but he's good at it. But I'm aware of all his shenanigans. It's so bad with him. Sometimes I'm scared to answer a question because I'm like, is this a setup? And he's like, no, dude, I'm not doing that. But at the end of the day, I give Josh this. He does respect that there has to be sometimes where business gets in, where we have to do it. But just like this situation of his new contract, Josh and I spoke a little bit last year about where numbers were going around the league. And he busts my chops sometimes, shooting me a text of this quarterback or that quarterback getting another deal and dropping him down the line. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, I hear you. You're right. Let's play this year and then we'll talk. So whether he got MVP or not, we had a plan to talk to him. So as soon as the season ended, it sucks. It abruptly ends. There's, unless you're holding the trophy up, it's kicking the balls. And so we waited a few days, and then he came by and sat, and we just talked. And I said, listen, I'm assuming you'd like for us to do something. He was smiling, like, of course, yeah. And so I said, listen, tell his agent's Patrick Collins, who does a great job, but I said, I'll reach out to Patrick and we'll talk some parameters. I'll hear some things that are important to you and to him. And we'll lay out some things that I've already talked to Mr. Pegula about that are important from the club side. Obviously, we want to be able to sign players, so we need to be able to do some things from a cap standpoint. But great dialogue. And then we kind of step aside. He does this thing. I work with his agent. I called him one time during it and just said, listen, these are a couple of things that I'm still – and – he wants to be involved. The sense of if I'm frustrated, and I know he's talking to his agent, but we have that dialogue. Hey, I'm struggling to get any further unless we can do this or that. And so I love that about him because he does want to win. Yes, he wants to be respected with where he stacks up and things like that. But ultimately, he doesn't want to do anything that's harmful to the Buffalo Bills winning, and how can you not respect that?
You didn't think, I know you're a good golfer, you weren't going to play him for, hey, let's go out match play dollar for dollar, see what you get. Early in the offseason, he might be struggling a little bit.
I would love to do that. He's got me a couple of times, and I don't know how far Terry would trust me with those millions on. There'd be a lot on the line, but it sure would be fun. I'll say that, Whit.
I got to play golf with him last week, and he's dialing it in already. I can tell you that. He took a little money off of me last week. So I'm glad you didn't go that philosophy. I would ask you, Brandon, like when you talk about this tenure with Josh, and really obviously the human being, couldn't be better. And obviously as a football player, he's insane. But, you always hear people say, hey, we want to build our organization the right way with the right kind of people. But to you, what does that even mean? Because I'm sure there's people that are maybe not in the world of football, but they're building, their organization with the kind of character and people they want. But when you say in the NFL, I'm going to build a franchise the right way, what does that look like to you and how you're acquiring players and talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with, even before you think about your players, what does your staff look like? What are like, you can find people that are talented as scouts, as position coaches, as coordinators, as athletic trainers. But are we team oriented? Is it about we and not me? And guys that just for the common cause, they're, if a trainer sees an equipment guy on the field needs some help with something, he's not like, well, that's not my job to worry about that. Like, it's a rainy game. They got the coats everywhere. You guys have been there, and it's all hands on deck. If it's a security guy, hey, we are doing anything, whatever your role is on game day, or even if you don't have a role on game day, whatever your role is to help this team win a championship, that's all you care about. Yes, you got to do your job, but shame on me and Sean McDermott and the leaders of this team if we can't find people who are talented at their job but treat people the right way, have a team first attitude, and that's really where it starts. And then you go to the players. Like, I think that was one of the things we wanted to do here in 2017. All right, ask questions of people who had been here, and then we didn't come in and just try and make moves right away with staff or players. It was get to know these people, and then who is going to fit our culture. Doesn't make them bad people, just can make them bad fits. And at that point in training camp, we started making moves. We'd been around them in the spring, and we started to decide, you know what, this player's going into his last year, or this player, they're getting aging in their career. We want to get off that contract. And so we started making moves then. And I would say it took us a little time, but that's what's important is it all starts with people, trust, communication, valuing, and respecting where everyone's coming from.
You take these draft picks that you hit on, we talked about the Josh extension, but Rousseau, TB, Khalil Shakir, keeping your own. And I think as players, for us, that means so much when you get drafted by an organization and you play well and you get rewarded. And it isn't, we'll see what happens. We'll let you off to free agency. And that resonates a lot in the building. Right now, you got all those done. You've got the other two that are sitting there now with James Cook and Christian Benford. Are there active discussions going on there now? Is that something that's going to take care of itself down the road? Where are you at with those two guys?
Yeah, we've definitely had dialogue with those guys. That's probably as far as I would take it, Fitz. But to how you started the question, that is, if you could draw up what I would want ideally in building this team is draft, develop. And when I say develop, that's on the field and off the field, the full person, the player, develop, and then re-sign. Now, sometimes the business gets in the way and we've had to let guys go because we just knew we couldn't afford them, or we just weren't on the same page as what their market was. And listen, when those happen, I'm trying to be one of the first ones to call them and say, hey, thank you for your 4 years here. Or in the case of Tremaine Edmonds, he was here all 5 years and got a great deal in Chicago, and still follow him and root for his success. And I tell those guys, hey, just because you're leaving now doesn't mean you can't come back down the line. Thank you for everything. But it one of the funnest joys is when you get to re-sign one of the guys that you've drafted and developed and seen it. So that's much more fun to me than going to free agency and paying someone that you haven't been around. You have to do it. It's a necessary part of it to fill some holes, prior to the draft. But those names that we've gotten done so far, this offseason, Shakir, TB, Greg Rousseau, that's what it's about.
Did you guys re-sign Whit's favorite guy too, Alec Anderson? You got him?
Love Alec. We still got Alec down. We almost lost him 1 year. His first year he was on the practice squad, and the Titans were trying like heck to get him, and he was about heading to the airport. And thank the Lord, Chrome got him in his office, and we penned him down and worked our magic to keep him. But he's been a fun story. He's one of those guys, people on the outside, the town knows him with his shirt. He's been following your past, shirts off, banging the drum, chugging a beer here and there. He makes all O-linemen proud, that's for sure.
Brandon, you brought up Chrome. He's got one of my favorite sayings. We'd always talk about guys across the league, and Sean McDermott would come to him and say, hey, what do you think about this guy or that guy? And he'd always say, hey, listen, sounds great. Is he walking out to the practice field when I walk out to the practice field? Yes, Chrome. Then no. So it's like that, he used to always say that. He's like, hey, seems like a nice guy. Looks talented, long arms, got a good base. Is he coming out to the practice field when I go out to the practice field? No, then I don't want him. But Chrome was the all-time best, man. I mean, we had a great relationship. But when you talk about those, Brandon, obviously you definitely want the homegrown guys. I think that when you're in Buffalo too, I know when I was in Cincinnati, when that would happen, just in those smaller markets, sometimes in that culture you have, it creates it to just keep exploding. And those guys get so much pride in where they play that they can go out and sell it. I was with Josh last week when Joey Bosa becomes an option. And I mean, his excitement of he shows me the text and he's like, what do I do? I got his number. I'm like, man, go call him, go talk to him, I mean, and he just like came back and he's just, you know him. I mean, he's just glowing because he's like, I went over there and I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to get him. It's just so cool to see. Not only did you just get paid, not only are you a part of a program where you've won the MVP, you're having all success, but how much it means to you to have a pride in the place you play. And I think that's obviously the goal you want, not just in keeping the guys, but they develop this pride of what you guys have in your building and continue to want to build on that culture themselves, not just you guys having to do it, but they want to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's huge, Whit. Like, it's one thing for me to sell it or a coach to sell it. Nothing sells it better than the locker room, like that, because they've lived it. They've seen how they've been treated. They've seen how their teammates have been treated. And so I can get on the phone all day. Sean McDermott, position coach, whatever, can get on the phone. But when a player, you know, like Josh or whoever else, and one of the things I love too, we've had a guy like Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, some guys like that who have played elsewhere and come back, and they're like, hey guys, like, before you leave, like, it's good here. They treat you good. I'm telling you.
Don't burn the bridge.
Yeah, it's not the same everywhere, and so that's what we want to be. We want to win. We want to treat people right, and we want people to want to be in Buffalo. Obviously, the business part matters. We know we have to contractually be competitive, but if the offers are even, that's when I get disappointed if we lose a player. It's down to us and a team, and we're both offering, you know, $5 million, and now it's just down to which organization's better. Like, that's where I'm like, man, why did we lose that? What can we do better to win that next time?
What are you looking forward to this year with the development of Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman? I know they both had some injury stuff last year, and, you know, it felt like it probably was the injury stuff where Dalton maybe took a step back or didn't perform exactly the way it was expected. But what do you see out of those two guys for Josh this year?
Yeah, I mean, Dalton really took off second half of his rookie year, made big plays in the playoffs, and you know, this year got banged up a little bit. I would say in Indianapolis was probably the worst, when dives for a ball that normally Josh would even hit. Josh was pressured. Dalton had a little out and up and hits that PCL, just that banged it on the turf there. And it's one of those things where, and quite candidly, you know, he could have shut it down for longer, but he's a tough kid. He wanted to get back out there, but you could tell he just wasn't himself. And I would say even the last game, I'm going to guess he was 80 to 90%. I don't know, but I give him a lot of credit, because I've seen guys say, hey, you know, we've all been around the guys that have the kind of that track mentality. Like, if I'm not 100%, I'm not going. And he never did that. As soon as we could get him out there, he wanted to help the team. I think I think it was probably humbling for him after being, you know, raved about after his rookie year, to have year two go the way it did. But I have no doubt, like, he's already been in here a bunch this offseason, and like he's got a chip on his shoulder. Like, man, I'm not letting that happen again. And some of it was clearly out of his control. And then, you know, Keon, I've tried to tell the local media and people, like, Keon was 21. We drafted him, young kid, still learning, growing, and really started taking off. He had two big games before he took a helmet from Poyer. We played Miami to the wrist, very end of the game, and knocked him out for a month, and then or maybe 5 games. And that's the one thing I challenge Keon a little bit with, is returning from injury, making sure you're ready to go. I think he was a little rusty. He lost his groove, and the offense was still rolling without him. And so that's hard to kind of maybe mesh back in. Like, you know, Matt Collins got rolling. We started getting Curtis Samuel going, and some, you know, James Cook was hot late as well. So it's one of those things where the opportunities weren't there, but, you know, I know he's been working as well, and I'm excited for year 2 of him and year 3 of Dalton.
You mean patience for a young guy? I don't think that exists anymore in the NFL, right? I mean, come on.
Zero.
Brandon, I always say this, like, you know, I just had this conversation with Jordan Whittington and even Puka Nacua and some of these guys. We went to dinner, and you know, I think people don't realize that in college football, the system and way it is now, and what they can actually do year around with these kids, and then they get to pro football, and it's like, hey, off season hits, and hey, man, wait a minute, where do I go? Like, who's supposed to take care of me? Who tells me where to be next? No. You got 3.5 months, you know, almost 4. You just figure it out. Like, go where you want to go, do what you want to do. Like, what's your plan to work out? Like, I think sometimes those guys almost it gets dropped on them, and they're trying to figure out their routine. And I think my point to that is, like, we don't want to give any of these guys any patience, but their whole world just changed. They're in a totally different business, and they need their routine for, hey, next time he's injured, he's going to understand he was rusty, and he's going to be like, hey, what do I need to do during that time that maybe my knees hurt, but what are the things that I could possibly do? Or maybe my ribs are hurt, but what are some things I can still do? Because that's what the pros do, and you know that. I mean, you see the guys that exist and last in this league, they're always getting better. They just find a way in a window, and what is that 1%, that they can figure out in a day. And I think that's the thing now with the new CBA, and a lot of that's changed. It's unfortunate is you see in the offseason, you're almost as a young player like thrown away for 4 months. And it's like, hey, you need to figure this out on your own because we're not even allowed to really help you. And then we just expect you to take these leaps and bounds every season. It is a dynamic I think these guys have to figure out with the best wisdom they can. And I think that's why when you have great talented guys like Josh and people that are good humans that can mentor, it's so important in these buildings.
No, it's in college football, as we know, we're getting guys less and less developed because these guys are going from year to year from different schools due to this NIL and all the other stuff. So there's a lot less developed players, even 5 to 10 years ago when you guys came out, you guys were much more developed as not only players, but as people, much more mature. There's a lot of, the society right now in college sports is if you're not playing me or paying me, I'm moving on. And that's the reality of it. And we're not teaching guys how to deal with adversity. And so some of the times the biggest adversity these guys are facing are as rookies or second-year players because, quite frankly, they've had their ass kissed for 3 or 4 straight years in college, and that's not the way it works when they get in here.
And how do you, when you're evaluating a guy, how do you figure out what type of guy he is, specifically with like that adversity trait and how he'll handle it? That's got to be one of the harder things to do. But how do you figure that out in this day and age with these young kids?
Yeah, I mean, I try and pick at it from different ways. Sometimes I ask guys, have you ever had a job? Like, you ever work anywhere? Like, do you ever have to do anything? Yeah. And when I was 15, I had to work till I was 17, and then whatever. And then some guys have never had a job. And then, why did you, I try to dig in. Why did you leave Florida State and then go to LSU? And then you left LSU to go to Texas. What was each step of the way? And then you're trying to talk to coaches. Like, did this player, you got tired of him? Did new staff come in? What did his teammates think of him? And definitely when we can talk to teammates through the process. I mean, a lot of times at those big schools, I'll ask guys, hey, if I draft you and you can take one guy on defense with you or one guy on offense with you just to set them up, who would you take with you and why? And see what they say. Sometimes guys they'll say the best player, and I'll dig a little further. Is it because he's the best player or because he's a great teammate and he works hard? And try and dig a little deeper. And it's crazy where sometimes they'll take a guy who is not even on our draft board. It's an undrafted guy, but it'll clue me in that this guy I need to dig a little more because his DNA may help him make a roster. And maybe it's a little red flag that he didn't select his buddy who's going to be drafted in the top 2 rounds.
And I would assume you and Sean McDermott obviously have, spent some time together now. You probably are pretty close, similar. You probably see things. But when you get in those kind of situations, Brandon, I mean, obviously I think no matter what business you're in or walk of life that you got, there's always going to be some point of conflict where one of you, even in your marriage, it can be that way. Trust me. I know that well. Hey, listen, you got to learn how to argue. You got to learn how to, hey, we see 2 things differently. Like, you think the boys should be doing this, the girls should be doing that, right? Conflict resolution is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so like when you guys get in a room like that and you're sitting there on a draft pick and you say, hey, this is a guy, I just believe in his talent and his skill and maybe the character. And maybe Sean says, hey, I'm leaning towards this guy. How do y'all get to those decisions where you get on the same page and say, all right, maybe we disagree a little bit, but here's how we're going to move forward? Yeah,
I mean, you're right. There's a couple different ways here. One is in general, like if we're talking about a player or how we want to do things and we realize that, we're not on the same page, it's like, all right, we don't have to go all the way down the rabbit hole now. If we're in a group, let's just, we'll make some points in front of the group, but then maybe on the side, talk it through behind closed doors and me let him air out how he sees it. And then reverse, let me air out how I see it. And then we walk away with a decision. And whatever that decision is, we both have to be I would say handle it maturely. And as long as it's in the best interest of the Buffalo Bills, that's what we're hired to do. And that's the same thing we say to the coaches and the scouts. When we turn a draft pick in, whether you think he's going to be going to the Hall of Fame or you think he's going to be a bust, it's all of our jobs to make this pick look correct, because rarely are you going to turn a pick in where every single scout and every single coach saw it the same way. Now, generally there's consensus, and that's my job beforehand. As far as on draft day, like, we try to go ahead and have most of those, like, especially earlier in the draft, first round, second round, try to do enough scenarios, and I'll walk through those after I've done them with the scouts, with Sean, with the coordinator, like, hey, if we're on the board and these two players are there, let me hear how you view them, because we've got them a little different than how I see them. And let's talk through it. Try to conflict resolute that before we ever get on the clock, so that when we're on the clock, I've already got the board stacked the way it needs to be stacked, and I am reacting to the depth of our board at that position, making the best decision. Try not to ever have that. Now, when you get in the 5th, 6th round, at that point, you're going, all right, we've already drafted a wide receiver, a corner, a safety. We still need to get a D tackle. Like, we're trying to, at that point, who's got the best chance to make your roster now? And do we say, oh, we could take this guy in the 5th because if we need a D tackle there, we still have 4 or 5 that we have ranked in the 6th or 7th. So those conversations might happen, but the main ones, those first 2 and 3 rounds, we've tried to go through those prior to actual draft day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's the thing people probably don't understand is how many times y'all are mock draft in practice. And I mean, being around the Rams facility it cracks me up. Just, they go in there and for hours, and I'm like, man, that is unbelievable how much they actually go through and simulate these things. But I'm sure, just like games and practices, it probably gets a little more heated and a little more serious on the game day of the draft.
It does, but that's the adrenaline rush, man. It's fun.
Hey, where does Terry fit into that? Whether it's the draft or free agency, with the conversations that you guys have, does he give you and Sean full reign on players? Is he the final sign off? Where does he fit in?
Terry's awesome. Like, Terry loves the process. He's got an analytical mind, and he sits in. He's one of the few owners. He comes to the combine. He sits in all our interviews. He likes to get to know those 45 players that we bring in there for 15 minutes. We watch film with them, and he doesn't say a word. They don't even know he's the owner. Once in a while, if like a guy from Penn State comes in, I'll kind of see if I can put him on the spot. Who the owner of the Bills is or something like that. And sometimes they'll know it right away, and sometimes they won't. And we'll see if we can embarrass them a little bit. But in all seriousness, Terry will sit in on our April meetings. He was in for some of our February meetings prior. It depends on his other work schedule. But when we start our April meetings, the last few weeks prior to the draft, he'll sit in there and again, once in a while, he'll ask a question. He's taken a lot of notes of what this scout said, what this coach may have said, how I see it. And then he'll come back too. Like, if sometimes he won't necessarily want to do it in the room, but he'll write some questions down that he has. He'll say, hey, y'all were talking about these 2 running backs, and you put this guy on top of this guy. But the way I heard it, I felt like the room liked this guy more. What am I missing here? And it's some great questions. And
that's great.
That's awesome.
And I think he deserves that, to be the owner. Like, ask those questions, and he'll try and come with a scenario. All right, so if you're on the clock and this guy there and this guy there, and once in a while he'll say, and I'll say something like, well, both of them will be there, Terry. We'll have our choice. And he's like, there's no way this guy will be there when you pick. And I'm like, all right, you want to bet $100? We'll just.
Yeah, exactly.
And he loves the action. He loves the just, the banter of the room, and he loves the process. He owns the hockey team too. And he sits in on their stuff. I haven't, ever sat in on their meetings, but, he's even had Kevin Adams, the GM over there, come over here once in a while and just kind of watch our process and participate. But I think it's great because he knows what's going on. He knows the work behind the scenes. He knows how we're building this draft board. This, like you said, Whit, you saw the Rams, all those hours behind the scenes. Like, he sees, and the thing I like about it is people, once they've been around him enough, whether it's coaches or scouts, they don't hold back. Like, I tell them all, like, don't hold back. Say what you feel, even if you're disagreeing with me. Speak up. If you have a thought and you did the work, as long as you scouted the player, watched the player, and you did the work, shame on you if you don't speak up. And because that's what we're paying you to do. Now, ultimately, I got to make that final decision, but you need to speak up even if it's 180 degree opinion of mine. And Terry likes that too. He doesn't want a room of groupthink. He wants a little bit of conflict in there. So it's a good process.
That's awesome you say that. I always tell young linemen, especially centers, when we get them, I'm always like, hey, listen, it's better to be loud and wrong than quiet and right. Like, just speak up. Like, don't tell me after the fact I thought it was this. Like, go ahead and just say it. Then we can fix it, right? Just communicate. Yeah. But you say that about guys and being unassuming. When I signed with the Rams in 2017, they take you to the dinner, free agency night, you sign. And if you know Kevin Demoff, he's always so unassuming. He's got his little hoodie, sweatshirt, and jeans, and just casual. And he tries to come up to say hey to Melissa, and Fitz knows Mel well. She's had a couple glasses of wine, and he says hey to her, and I literally, out of the corner of my ear, I'm like talking to Wade Phillips or somebody, and I hear her go, "Oh, that's so sweet. Now, what do you do? Do you work for the Rams?" And I'm going, "Oh no!" I put both hands. I just do one of these. I turn around like, babe, get it together.
I love that.
But that was it. It was great. It's fantastic.
Demoff still probably reminds you of that every day.
You got to remember, he's come out. He was the only one that was against me signing there. He said that before, but he was actually voted no. So I give him shit actually more, Fitz, for that.
We all need humble pie. That was good. That's for right. Him too. Yeah,
that's right.
All right, let's turn to this next season. I know every offseason, obviously, you're trying to get the team better. Do you ever make decisions right now based on how do we beat the Chiefs? Are there specific decisions you make thinking about the Kansas City Chiefs, or is it all just how do we get this team better? How do we get this team over the hump?
Not just in totality, just about the Chiefs. I was talking to our local media after the draft. I mean, after the season ended this year, and they were like, "What do you got to do to beat the Chiefs? What's the thing?" And ultimately, I'm like, "Listen, it's a play here, a play there. We're not getting our doors blown off, and we beat them in the regular season. They beat us in the postseason. But again, you know, this year, Josh gets that first down on fourth down. You know, we're up 22-21 at the time. If we continue that drive and get a touchdown, it puts a different pressure on. Maybe that one play, it's, you know, as you guys know, every game that's decided within one score usually comes down to 2 to 3 plays in a game. And so you got to be careful not to overreact. And the other part of that, Fitz, is, in my opinion, never forget how you get to the postseason, and that is win your division. That's your ticket. If we focus, in my opinion, solely just on the Chiefs or the Ravens or whoever, and we don't pay attention to how we match up in our division, then we may not get that opportunity. And so I always start with our matchups with those 3 teams, and then after that, start looking at some of the other contenders. But, you know, as I said, like, let's just say next year we made the playoffs and we feel like, man, we got this team. We're ready for the Chiefs, and we get to the AFC Championship and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Cincinnati Bengals, and we lose. And I'm, you know, how idiotic do I look walking up to the podium saying, well, man, if we'd have played the Chiefs, we'd have beat them. We were ready. But it is a natural question, Fitz, to say, how do you do that? We just, you know, I firmly believe from my experience in the league and the teams that I've been on that have been to Super Bowls, that to win those games, especially as the gauntlet, the AFC, is your best players have to play their best. And that's generally what happens. And when you see those teams, and even to the Super Bowl, I would say Philadelphia's stars rose to the occasion more than Kansas City's did that day. They play 5 more times, it might be totally different, but that day they did it. And that's what we have to do if we're going to get past the Chiefs, Ravens, all these other AFC contenders to get the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you say that. We had a stretch there in LA where San Francisco had beat us, I don't know, 6 times or 7 times in a row or something. And I'll never forget our Week 18 loss to them that goes to overtime. I've always told people this. It's like when we went into those games, we were really successful during that time. We had a lot of wins, but it always felt like they played their best and we played our worst. Like, we always had all these excuses. Like, oh man, they only beat us because we turned it over in the first half, or they only beat us because of, you know, X, Y, and Z happened. You know, we got this penalty. And it felt like when we lost that game, it was the first time I remember coming in on Monday morning and it was like, damn, those guys are good. Like everybody just came in and was like, man, they're better than us. And it was like when we got that chance again in the NFC Championship, the mentality was totally different. It was, how do we scratch and claw away to find a way to beat these guys? Not, oh man, if we just like don't mess up, they might, we'll be okay. It's like it flipped our mentality, and finally the team said, hey, this is about how good can we go freaking play for 3 hours. It has nothing to do with anything else. Go win this 3 hour window, and that's all it comes down to. And that's obviously a lot harder than anyone can really grasp, is every one of those little plays and how much they matter to a football game.
You just said it without saying it. It's about you more than it's about them. Like it's you, it's your mentality going into that. We had that in Carolina, we couldn't get past Seattle. Seattle kept beating us, and we were down on the road by like 10 or 11 points going into the fourth quarter. We came back, scored 2 in a row. Greg Olsen scored with like 27 seconds to go. And it was like, it gave us that confidence. Like, we did it. We did it on the road. The 12s there were, that was always a hard place, as to go play and to win. And that place went from the loudest place in the world to, you could hear a pin drop in it when Olsen caught that touchdown. It was like, I could literally hear on the sidelines from the press box, our guys celebrate. It was like the COVID games. It got so quiet, but that's truly what it is. You need something. Y'all needed to lose that overtime game to say, all right, enough's enough. This is about us. We needed to go on the road and beat Seattle. And that's the same thing. We've done it in the regular season, but we have to go play our best game in the postseason. If we don't, we're not going to beat the Chiefs. Or like I said, we barely beat the Ravens the week before. A play or two there differently. If their tight end doesn't, Terrell Bernard punches out that ball, they're driving to take the lead on that possession. A play or two there can change a game, and especially, like I said, as deep as the AFC is right now.
Yeah, Brandon, I got to apologize. I threw my shirt off in that AFC game against the Ravens, and they went down and scored right away. So I got to do more. I got to be better. But it was one of the coolest moments for me. And then
that was sick.
Turn around and watch them go down and score. I was
March
like, what
right
do
down.
I do?
Well, Kyle did it the week before. Like Kyle did the Denver game, and I busted his chops. I said I was about to come. They marched right down the field. I was like, all right, no more Kyle Williams intros.
We were happy to see Kyle and
I was
Whit
so
are
pumped.
like best buddies. We're happy to see him there, man. We were happy to see him.
Brandon, we were high school rivals. So we were high school rivals, Ruston and West Monroe High School.
Yep.
He would come. I played basketball. He would come with all the boys, and they would chant and rant and talk trash to me the whole time in the district basketball games. And then I'd go back to baseball. And I mean, Kyle is his stature. I don't know the best way to describe it. He was an easy target in high school because of his build. And so I would throw Snickers bars at his feet from the first base fence line. Like we would just crush him. Now, he was an unbelievable baseball player. If anybody knows this, Kyle Williams, much less being an all-pro defensive tackle, is a phenomenal athlete. Swimmer, baseball, you name it, he can do it all. But dude, insane golfer.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would tease the crap out of him from the fence line at the baseball game. So we had a good time. We became college roommates. It was like, dude, we hated each other. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we gotta love each other. So what a tremendous dude that guy is.
He is. He bragged on you a lot. I knew you guys were tight. He always. I didn't know the whole relationship. He explained that to me back in his days here. So it's a cool story.
Yeah. We only lived about 3 miles from each other, but he was more in the country than me. So I would always introduce him to people and say he lives where there's no fences, and he would get, his personality. He would swing at me like he would get so mad.
Oh yeah.
And I'd be like, man, there's no fences where Kyle lives. But as a crow flies, he only lived about 3 miles from each other.
Dude,
so.
when we were playing with the Bills together, we went and hit BP for the Blue Jays. And I had warning track power. I mean, I hit a few. I could not get it to leave the yard. It was so frustrating. And when you've seen him play. This dude was hammering the ball. I mean, he must have hit 10 to 15 home runs that day. And it was just like so natural. And you look at him and you're like, how is this possible?
How's he doing?
Well, when he swims, you're like, how does this guy not sink to the bottom of the pool?
He can fly.
He's unbelievable.
He's
such
a freak,
great
and for a big guy in golf, the softest hands, like just around the green.
His chipping and stuff is crazy.
Amazing.
Like the wedge in his hands, it's crazy. Yeah. On that subject, I got to ask you, Brandon, just because I mean, we haven't played together. Maybe we will one day. I hope so. I'm an avid golfer, love to play. So I got to ask you this question. All right, I'm going to tee you up on this. All right, I know you don't like doing predictions, so we're not going to do predictions. We're going to say the Bills win it all. You get to choose. You get to rank these 4 shots because this is going to tell me a little bit about your golf game. All right, we're going to go Masters. I know Fitz is a big Masters guy, so he's at the Masters every year.
I met Josh.
So I'm going to give you 4 shots. You tell me the order you would take these shots in as far as your golf game and difficulty.
Okay.
All right, let's go tee shot on 13, where you got to draw it around the corner to set up a chance for going for it.
New tee box there, guys.
Yep. Tee shot on 12, the par 3. Okay. Downhill left to right putt on 1 at Augusta from about 10 feet. Okay. Or the tee shot on 18 where you got to cut it or you're hitting it in the bunker and then you got an uphill bunker shot. What we got? Which one you taking first?
Well, which one's the hardest or which one's the easiest?
Yeah, which one for you? You'd be most comfortable taking this shot. Which one?
The one I would take the most would be 13. I would. Okay. Now, I don't know how it looks on the tee box.
You like to draw it?
Yes.
You can move it? Okay.
Yeah. So I would do that. 12 is like, it looks simple, but there's just nowhere.
Oh my gosh.
It's the wind. It's all about the wind, man.
And 18, like that is a shoot. Like that is.
People don't understand how small that area is. It
from
is
where those guys tee off, like that is a long, like I think that's one of the most intimidating shots there is. That's what I was going to say. If you were asking me what's the hardest one, I think that 18 tee ball, minus the pressure you would have to be on 18, even if that was hole 4, that is a cool shoot until you're there looking down that line. That's intimidating. It's pretty cool.
So will I see you at Augusta this year, or are you going to be prepping for the draft, or what's going on?
So I've been to 2 practice rounds on Mondays, but it's always the week when we start. Well, the calendar's kind of screwed up. We're going to be at draft meetings again. I have a standing invite to go, but I had to miss it last year. I'm about to miss it again. I'm hoping the Masters calendar works with my scouting calendar next year so I can get back there, because I love to go to Berkman's and do the whole.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hard to leave there.
I've got a standing appointment on April 7th. Oh, one of my daughter's birthdays, and I have missed her birthday quite a bit. She's now at the age where she'll resent me forever for it. So luckily this year it's not on her birthday this year, so we're good. So I've told her, if it was on your birthday, I definitely wouldn't be there. But that's one of the best events, man. And Josh and I go every year. It was CAA, and it is, oh my God, it is so much fun. And I usually go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And every day, chairs and different seats. And I got a million stories about, people throwing shoulders and elbows at me, trying to get, on the tee box on 14, whatever it is, like the different chair positions. But we have so much fun every year. Can't wait to do it this year.
I've never been able to play it yet, but I love just walking it.
Me neither. I think obviously Josh has played it. Whit, have you played it?
I have played it.
Okay.
I have played it. I have. Yes, I have played it. Josh
is the most connected man, the most connected O lineman of all time. Now Jason Kelce. We'll go Whit number 2 of all time.
Yeah, I moved to 2. Kelce's got me.
I respect it.
Last thing there, before we let you go, free agency. It looks like you guys have addressed defensive line a little bit. What are some of the things you're looking to? Obviously, you're not going to give us your plans in the draft, but this offseason in general, some of the things you're looking at this team and trying to get better.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had a lot more returners on offense. We've got our top 7 or 8, speaking of Halleck, and those guys as backups, O-line. So, which we think, we always want to be good up front. We want to be stout. We start there. Like, once you got the quarterback, protect him and then get after the other team's quarterback. And that's probably where we've come up short. And like I said, I'm always trying to see how, the different nuances, whether it's inside rush, outside rush. You got to have enough power there to stop the run, though, to get to third down. It's just trying to have enough versatile pieces along that D line. So we've tried to attack that some in free agency and just, you face different teams. You face these quarterbacks now that, like we said, with Lamar and Mahomes, all these guys, you got to get after them. You got to be able to affect them. And so, we'll definitely, continue to look there, whether it's, the remaining of free agency. If there's something in the draft that makes sense, we wouldn't hesitate. Anytime we can add to either line, we wouldn't hesitate to do that. It's just, I think that's so important. But beyond that, just continue. We probably still have some areas on defense that I would say we need to continue to shore up, whether it's a starter or a depth player. I would say offensively, we probably have a lot more returners than on defense. So if you ask me now, there's probably going to be more selection on the defensive side than offensive side. We'll trust the board, but that's just kind of my gut today.
Anytime you're talking about O-line and D-line, you get Whit smiling.
Get me fired up, baby. I'll start making my list of good teams in the league.
That's where it's won. Trenches.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Brandon, thank you for joining us, dude. Appreciate it, man. Thank you for taking the time. Good luck with the draft. I'll send you a picture from Augusta.
Yeah, please do.
It's all right. Brandon and I will go play golf. You just go to Augusta every year, all right?
Whit, tell me where to be, buddy. I'm ready to get going. And,
let's go.
Take him to Cragburn.
Cragburn's the best. Please come to Cragburn. If you want to test your game, Whit, come to Cragburn.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. Thanks guys.
Appreciate it, brother.
Well, I think he realizes how lucky he is to be in the position he's in, drafting Josh Allen and that decision, and kind of how that has set up the Bills for success. He really gets Buffalo, which I think is so important. If you're going to be a coach there, a GM there, a player there, like, you have to understand Buffalo, and him talking about guys like Josh and drafting guys because they're Buffalo people. They know the grind, they're blue collar. I thought that was really important. And then I didn't know this obsession with golf. And I guess if he's beaten Josh, he's got to be pretty good at golf too.
Yeah, I think he's a 3 index is what I've heard him say.
Oh, so you've looked it up.
Oh, yeah. No, trust me.
Yeah,
I hear a guy's into golf. I want to make sure. I asked him to play for a reason, and we're going to play heads up.
I just felt like I kept asking him all these questions about Buffalo as a fan and where the team's headed and all these guys, and you were more the leadership and how you.
I was just trying to set my golf game, Fitz.
Yeah,
that's all.
I think he'll give you a couple strokes. We'll see. I wanted to make sure you didn't bamboozle him at the end there, though. I wanted to make sure he knew you were a player.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I think the cool thing too, really understanding his story, Ryan, is like coming up from starting as, hey, I'm just going to find a way into the building. And then I'm going to just keep working and keep grinding and keep asking people the right questions and saying, how do I go to the next step? And then becoming the director of football ops in Carolina, and all his time there he had. And, I read where basically when he was the ops guy, he was in charge of the equipment room at one time, and then kind of moved from there. Just watching the way he came up, I think when you talk about, we've heard people mention like the Patriot way in New England, but like when you talk about Buffalo and how unique Buffalo is, and I know your love for it, we hear all the time, and you've gotten to take me around and show me around, and I get to realize what a special place it is. It's cool to have somebody who really started their NFL journey literally at the bottom of just get me in a door and let me just be a part of this thing. And then they made their way all the way up to being a GM. I think it just fits with what is Buffalo in that sense, in that you got to be willing to serve. You got to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And that's got to be your passion and your energy. And it's cool to see that really that's his story and why it fits so well for him to be the GM in Buffalo.
Yeah. And also just talking about he wants guys around him that are the same way, that are willing to do anything. It really stuck out to me on game day. It doesn't matter what your role is. Like, you're here to help the team win, whatever it is. If you've got to go help with rain jackets or do any of that, like, that's how this organization is built. And the great thing about it, like you were just saying, is the guy that's expecting you to do all these things has done them all and probably continues to still do them because that's all that he knows. So it's a perfect embodiment of the city of Buffalo, the city of good neighbors. Very cool to have him on today and to hear some of his stories. And, interesting to hear him talk about the Chiefs a little bit. They obviously got to get over the hump of the playoffs with the Chiefs. But I loved his point, though, about, AFC East is kind of where it starts. We got his path to the playoff is winning the AFC East. And, they spend a lot of time and energy on that. And it sounds like in the draft, they're going to be a lot of defense. Looks like, and if you look at their roster, I mean, they're built, their offense is built right now to win. There's guys that are going to continue to be there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with James Cook. That could become an issue as the season gets closer. I can't wait to see how Josh Palmer fits into this offense, but the development of some of the young guys, him developing young guys and re-signing them is a great joy for him. That was a really cool thing to see. And I mentioned it, but as players, like, there's nothing better. And for you, that was a Bengal for 11 years. Like, it's really cool to see teams draft guys, develop them, and keep them as their own.
Yeah, exactly. And with that mentality of, yeah, sure, we got to beat the Chiefs, but we also have to win our division and all those things. You can hear him say that, and you can tell it's like, hey, yeah, there's a focus to beat the Chiefs, but there's really a focus of how do we be this football team that we're in control of our own destiny. We control what we control. And that's being at our absolute best every single week. And then that really passion he has to go and compete in everything. You know, he kind of shared with us about, you know, him and Josh playing some and really get on the golf course and compete. And then afterwards, you know, he kind of, you know, we had a little moment there. He shares with us really how competitive he is. You know, you're always wanting to have that next shot to show who you are and what you believe in. I think he has a real passion about Buffalo and why it's so special. And you know what? They feel like they deserve that title, and they got to go earn it, though. And I love that. But the other part, Fitz, I would touch on real quick is I heard that, speaking of people that need to get focused on titles, that the Fitzpatrick golf family title might have changed hands this week. Is that true? There's
Where
rumors.
did you hear that from?
There's rumors. I may have gotten some information. I just want to throw it out there. Is that an accurate statement?
What Andrew is alluding to is my son, who's 18. He's a man now. I mean, now he can sign his own waiver forms.
He was a kid last week. Now he's a man. Okay,
he's a man
all right,
now.
Go ahead. Yeah,
well,
all right.
He beat me in golf for the first time.
Now he's a man.
I do have to throw it out there that he beat me by 10 strokes. So It wasn't very close. Dad didn't have his best match. He didn't play very well. You know, I talked all about Ken Griffey Jr., changing my grip, getting me ready to go. Wait, I was in shambles. I was all over the place, and he laid it on me. 2 birdies on the back. I mean, it was like, you know, I was down 5 with 6 holes to play. I started playing the mind games. I started doing the, well, you know, here it comes, Brady. I started, you know, making noises in his backswing as I got real serious. He put me away. So I don't think this is going to be the last time it happens. Now, he's never beat me on the mainland. We're in Hawaii right now, so he's never beat me on the mainland.
Okay.
So
let me tell you something. You want to talk? You think that's bad? On the day Josh Allen got his $330 million contract announced, he whooped me in golf, and I had to pay him $300. So you want to talk about, hey, handing a guy $300? You're like, I don't know how this is going to move the needle for you, Josh, but there you go, bud. I hope it helps.
What did
out.
he went and wipe his butt with it after the round, or what did he do? Oh my God. That was
awesome. A bad feeling.
I've got to get my golf game in order. I know yours is always in order. But before we go, and before I go practice and get some sun in Hawaii, I got a good tan, by the way.
Yeah, look at you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, starting to feel like you. Starting to have a nice little bronze. Let's go to the comments that we received last week after doing the John Gruden free agency episode. I'll read the first one, and we'll just go back and forth here. But at Buffalo Beetle, Alex Van Pelt and Ryan Fitzpatrick getting smashed at the big tree. Fitz, you are a Bill. Thank you. I knew the Bills fans would enjoy that story. Certainly true, too.
Well, they definitely did. I mean, Trevor Morton, 8415, says, we need Fitz added to the Bills staff in any capacity. So much love for Fitz from Buffalo. These guys, they love you. You love that, Fitz.
So I can't do the coach thing. Maybe equipment room? Now that we heard from Brandon Beane, like
I think you'd be a good equipment guy, Fitz.
I think it would be scary if we got all my equipment guys on the podcast and just gave them. You get to tell 2 stories, a lot of nudity.
Yeah,
a lot
I was about
of stuff
to say
going on.
Your COVID videos would definitely make the podcast.
All right, at youtube.algorithmic.nonsense. Still pissed Whit didn't sign with Vikings when he left Cincinnati. I know Mike Zimmer really respected him. He could have been the starting left tackle in the 2017 NFC Championship game, which the Vikings lost. But with Whit at left tackle, who knows?
Based off that handle, I'm going to guess this is Mike Zimmer because he's probably still mad at me. Mike, I'm sorry, brother. I apologize.
Okay, to the point though of what Brandon Beane just said about when he offers guys and it's similar money somewhere else and they go somewhere else, he feels slighted. Was it similar money in Minnesota or was it?
Yeah, it was actually one of those things where when I said this last week, when we sent the offers out, Minnesota kind of hesitated. we met, with the Rams, kind of decided after sitting together as a family, that's where we were going. And they called back late that night and we're like, we'll beat the offer. We'll do whatever. We want you here. And I was like, you know what? I just, through this thing, being a man of your word and what I've experienced here in Cincinnati is going to be the most important part of this decision to me. And so for us, we don't want to reopen the discussion. We're going to LA. So that's really how it ended. But Zimmer was, obviously communicating with me the whole time. We were always really close, and I had a ton of respect for him, and it definitely was a place I was interested. But there was something about, really honestly, knowing Sean and through Jay Gruden and everything else, it just felt like Melissa and I getting married out there. It just felt like there's a reason, and we felt it. And, at the end of the day, the money was similar with them and a couple other teams, and we decided that's where we're going.
That's awesome. All right, your turn.
All right.
Busted knees?
Busted knees, Sports Network. Anyways, but when is Whit going to tell Fitz LSU is the Harvard of Louisiana?
Next.
True.
Nick Melito. Hey, guys, you should start a line of beard grooming products.
Nick, I'm with you.
Like you need more money, LOL. Oh, we love money, Nick. I mean, as you could tell, Whit has been losing lots of money on the golf course. That's recently accurate. To guys that make a lot more money than him. So they click the video, huge appetite for NFL, screw the NFL stuff. Oh, the human aspect of this podcast really touched me. I'm now even able to tolerate Gruden a little.
Wow. I like that. There was some positive Gruden feedback. I like that. Let's see. Daniel Parsons, 2859, not Micah Parsons, Daniel. What some people aren't doing is giving leeway when someone isn't perfect. And then those same people complain when they get the same treatment. If you don't have problems, you're not living. That's, you know what? It's not completely off there.
Well, my biggest problem in my life right now is that my son is a better golfer than me.
You got work to do, Fitz, honestly.
I got some work to do. Thank you to all the viewers who submitted comments and questions. Keep them coming on YouTube, Instagram, and X, and we'll keep responding right here on the show. Thanks again to Bills GM Brandon Beane. What a cool dude. That was awesome. Good to hear from him. And we will see you next week for another episode of Fitz and Whit. See you.
Peace.